Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. She's back, very smart woman, Kira Davis, host of Just Listen to Yourself podcast and editor-at-large for Red State. You know, my dear sister, I used to be editor-at-large for Rolling Out, and so I enjoy the flexibility and freedom that comes with that position. I'm now president of Rolling Out. I don't have as much flexibility and freedom as being editor-at-large. It's a fun position to have.
The boss never does. Yeah.
That's right. So congrats to you on that.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you. We're gonna chop it up about school choice and how critical race theory has eliminated some of that choice for Black founded charter schools. And let's get into the Voting Rights Act, two versions of them presented by Democrats primarily and supported by Democrats almost completely. So let's start with the Voting Rights Act, or the versions of that bill. What are your thoughts about it? And do you agree with the sentiment of it, or do you disagree?
I think the sentiment of it is people are concerned about the sanctity and the legitimacy of their elections, and I think that reflects where we are as a nation when it comes to elections. But as far as what's in the bill, my concern is that it's not going to withstand any constitutional challenges, either version. And I think this is why it's having so much trouble. So what the bill really does is it federalizes elections that are constitutionally held at the state level. And that's not really been a part of the discussion, well, except on this show, when we're talking about what's in this bill. And so I can understand that people are getting really emotional over it, but if you dig in and read it, it has a lot of problems. So there are reasons why there are even some Democrats opposing it. And I fear that it just wouldn't withstand a constitutional challenge.
Now, let me ask you this question, madam. Why do you think, what part of the bill or what dynamic do you believe is unconstitutional?
The dynamic that takes the state, the election mechanics out of the state and places them at the federal level. So, like federal counting, federal oversight, those types of things. As you well know, our Constitution is built to uphold states' rights, and our Constitution is actually structures elections around states doing these things themselves, because states are basically little countries, right? We're the United States of America. And so that is really my biggest problem with it. And I think that is the thing that's going to be challenged if it does pass, which it's not looking like that's gonna happen.
All right, so that's fascinating. Do you mind if I read the Constitution to you?
Yeah, no.
Article 1, Section 4. It says the times, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives, talking about federal elections, what you are discussing on the show, shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But, this is in the Constitution, the Congress shall make at any time, by law, make or alter such a regulation or regulations, plural. That's in your US Constitution.
So yes, that's a constitutional amendment, you're right.
So when you say-
That's what that language is.
Correct. So when you say, well, it's unconstitutional because the power only rests with states to determine these elections, the Constitution disagrees with you. The Constitution says it does rest with the state unless the United States Congress decides to pass a law where it does not. That's what it says.
Yeah.
Article 1,
I know, but
4.
there are other, yeah, that's right. But there are other provisions in the Constitution that provide for states' rights over the federal government. I can't right now because I don't have the Constitution in front of me. However, my thing is not, don't pass this. I'm not saying that, Rashad. What I'm saying is I fear it will not withstand a
But you gave your premise, in all due respect, madam, you gave the premise, you said, listen, I don't
pass it. I think the Democrats should try to pass it.
Okay, well, they have. But the issue is when you say, Rashad, I don't think it's going to pass the constitutional muster because it's adversarial to the Constitution in the aspect that it takes away the state's ability to run a federal election. Well, I just showed you where it's actually pro-constitutional, is in the Constitution and allowable specifically in the context of the Constitution for the United States Congress to pass laws that will then federalize an election. It says they can do it at any time they choose by law or alter such regulations. That's in the Constitution. So if you're saying the biggest barrier for this Voting Rights Act to become a reality is the fact that it's somehow unconstitutional, I just disproved your theory or your narrative that it is unconstitutional.
I don't think that's the biggest barrier.
What's the other barrier?
The biggest barrier, Democrats.
Okay. You think also the barrier are Republicans as well?
Well, Republicans are the opposition party. So Republicans are going to oppose.
But this is about people. This is about people, right? Let's not get so caught up in the partisan conversation that we forget what's in the bill. So you said, all right, here's a problem with the bill. I have disproved that as a problem. Do you like what's in the bill? Do you know tell me what parts of the bill you do not like?
I think the feds should have their hands out of state business. I mean, this applies in my
But are these not federal elections?
Conservatarian philosophy, this applies across the board.
Okay.
My principles are these federal elections? They're general elections, but general elections are held by and overseen by states, so not the Fed. And so here's my thing. Anything we do for one side is gonna have to be done for the other side. So let's just pretend that Donald Trump is going to be run again in 2024 and wins in 2024. Do we want Donald Trump to be in control of counting the votes?
All right, let me answer your question. Number one, if Donald Trump is in charge of counting the votes, that is unconstitutional. I cannot start making policies based on some man that may break the law in his future position of future power. I can make good and sound policy.
But Joe Biden said himself that it's about who counts the votes.
Madam, if Donald Trump counts the votes, that is against the law. That is unconstitutional. I cannot make a policy.
That's a metaphor,
I cannot make a policy dynamic.
We don't have to do this. We both understand that Donald Trump or Joe Biden is not going to be sitting in a room, counting out the votes.
Well, that's what Trump basically wanted.
Raffensperger does have the mechanics. Okay, well, do you want him to have that control again? This is a state issue. It should stay at the states. This is good for us. It's better for us this time.
All right, 32 states passed voter restriction laws after they believed in what's called the big lie that somehow the election was stolen from Donald Trump. These states do not cite any voter fraud whatsoever in their narrative nor in their audits or investigations. But over 30 states, Republican states, passed these, 30 Republican-led legislatures passed these laws out of their chamber. My question to you is, do you believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump?
No, I believe, and also I would object to your description of the laws. They are not election restriction laws, they are election integrity laws. And in fact, on my podcast, which you mentioned at the top of the show, I went through both Georgia voting law and Texas voting law line by line, so that listeners
how many pages is the Georgia voting law?
The Georgia voting law, I think it might be, maybe I read 3 or 4 pages. I don't know. You can go look on my podcast. I mean, I went through line by line.
I understand
it's not that much, but my point is that they're not.
Let me correct you on something.
Laws, they're integrity laws.
Okay, that's the point you're trying to make. Number one, that bill is over 90 pages long. That's number one. I've actually read the entire bill. Do you even know the name of the bill?
Listen.
You told me you read 3 lines or 3 pages.
I did not read 3 lines or 3 pages.
You said you read 3 pages.
Then you know, Rashad, that every bill has 3 or 4 pages of meat and 90 pages of
Ma'am,
just
you said you read it line by line, madam. That bill is over 90 pages long.
I did not read the legislative filler.
Let me tell you why I read
the changes.
Okay.
Go to my podcast. Just listen to yourself.
I'm not going
Kira
to your
Davis.
podcast.
It's available wherever you find your podcast.
Okay.
And you can listen to me break down Georgia and Texas voting laws line by line.
3 pages, right?
Just go to the podcast. I stand by what I say. I'm an honest broker.
All right, so it's over 90 pages. What's the name of the Senate bill? Do you remember?
The Senate bill for Georgia. No, I don't remember offhand. I mean, I can Google it right now if you want to take a minute.
So the issue that passed the General Assembly and also the 90+ page bill, Senate Bill 202. And in that Senate bill, it does restrict voting. I don't think you know where it restricts it.
How does it restrict voting?
I'm glad you posed that question. I'm glad you posed that question. And maybe you can invite me on your podcast and I'll debate you on it. This is where
I would love that.
Absolutely. This is where restricted voting. In the state of Georgia, the counties were allowed to basically choose when they instituted early voting, also weekend voting. They could do this through their local board of elections because the Supreme Court got rid of pre-clearance, so you no longer had to receive clearance from the Department of Justice to change some of these election dynamics. So what did counties like Fulton, DeKalb, Clayton, and others do? These are primarily urban counties, okay? They decided to increase early voting and increase weekend voting, which contributed to something called souls to the polls. This is when churches, primarily black churches, would take their church goers to the voting precinct, to the voting booth, right? So what Georgia did is they decided to restrict those particular metro counties and cut down the days that they can do early voting and also weekend voting, limiting their access to the ballot on the weekend. They also changed the time of when you can do a drop off of your ballot. We call that the drop off ballot vote, right? At a precinct.
Yes, all these points I discussed in my podcast.
Right, so they decided to use a 5 p.m. cutoff time, which made the rule ineffective because most people who used it after they got off work, which was around 4 or 5 p.m. And they decided to limit the time that you can actually use the drop box system. In addition to that, the absentee voting dynamic, it was customary to say, I don't need to give a reason why I'm going to absentee vote. If I want to absentee vote, I can absentee vote. Now they're bringing back excuse only absentee voting. Another element that maybe when you read your 3 pages, you did not see.
No, I read all these points you're talking about are in my podcast. Just listen to yourself and Cure Davis.
But you can't talk about it.
I'm not lying to you.
All right, so here's the other point.
I can't talk about it. Let me respond to these points.
All right, so
I
got one more point.
I don't have the page numbers and I didn't do printouts before I came on with you. I'm happy to discuss and debate this, absolutely.
I got one more point because I want to bring this home because I think you would understand the reason why this is important. They made it a criminal offense, okay? To give someone water or snacks in a line. It is a misdemeanor punishable by 6 months in prison.
No, it's not illegal to give someone water and snacks in line.
Madam, that's in the bill. That's in the law.
It's not
even
illegal to give someone water and snacks in line. It is illegal for a political organization to give people water and snacks in line within 150 feet of a voting location. It is the same principle as wearing a political piece of clothing like a MAGA hat or an Obama shirt during Obama elections. It's the same principle. It's the idea that you can't influence voters even at the last second by handing them a bottle of water emblazoned with the theme of a campaign slogan of a local politician. There's nothing to say that you can't bring food or water, or someone can't bring you food or water, or someone can't set up a stand and sell food or water. You cannot do it within 150 feet of the voting location.
All right, you're incorrect. So let me go ahead and give you the truth, because I hope people who are watching, when you see this, make sure you research the law. Even Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham, went on national news and challenged the governor to strike that provision from the bill because he said it didn't make sense. So the bill, first of all, it's already illegal in the state of Georgia to do what's called electioneering. You cannot campaign, utilize your organization to campaign, nor can you use opportunities close to the precinct in order to campaign for your candidate. That's already against the law. There was no new law needed. It was already illegal. What they did is they said, we're gonna pass a new law because it's codified in the same Senate bill we're talking about that makes it a misdemeanor offense if somebody is not even electioneering, but they are providing food and beverage, that's the exact wording of the law, to individuals who are waiting in lines. Now, that's in the bill. So when you say, no, this is about electioneering, that's not in the law. The law doesn't say that.
It is in the law.
No, it's not in the law, man. That's a damn lie. You're lying your
That's
ass off
not
on
a
the show.
lie.
That's
You're
a damn lie,
lying.
ma'am. I don't like
You're
calling
lying.
people liars, but you
I
are
don't know
a
why you're
damn
calling
lie.
me a
It's
liar.
in
Okay.
the bill. You need to
This
do some
is-
research and read it again.
I
I'm going to
will go
explain
see my podcast.
what the
Just
bill
listen to yourself
actually
with Keir
intended.
David.
You're a damn lie. What
There's
the bill
two.
actually
I
intended
broke
to do.
down over 4 episodes. I read every.
I don't give a damn how many podcasts you did.
Texas
You
law,
are
Georgia
lying
law.
or completely misguided about the bill.
I'm not lying, and
Madam,
I can
you
understand
said the bill was
that,
3 pages
that
and
the
you read every
passion
line.
behind this makes you want to scream at me like this.
Man,
But I'm
you're
just
lying.
trying
I don't
to
like
be
it when people.
fair
I don't
about
like it when
the
people take policy
characterizations
issues
about
that are really
the bill.
impacting people and lie about it. At least know what you're talking about. You're lying about it. Okay? I don't like that. These are real people that are impacted by these policies and bills. We're talking about democracy. Y'all are making fun of this stuff. This is real. This is serious. It doesn't get realer than this. All right, did she leave? That's fine. Listen, I get passionate about this stuff, and if I offend you, that's fine. But I'm going to say what I intended to say. The reason why that provision was put in the bill was to limit the encouragement of black voters who historically have longer lines at their precincts. They did not want nonprofits and churches to run ads and run campaigns and go knocking on doors saying, we will provide you with water, we will provide you with food if you have to stand in lines, because that was the campaign of the last election cycle. They wanted to make criminals out of pastors and nonprofit directors and college students who simply wanted to give water and food specifically to elderly people. They now want them to be criminals. That's a problem.